everybody, and welcome back to Time to Go. Bob here, and in today's video we are going to be looking at a watch by Seiko from the Presage line. That is the Seiko SSA305J1. So I've had this watch for a couple of months now, so I've had a lot of time to kind of experience it, play with it. At the time I was looking for a watch with a power reserve function, and I thought this thing was just beautiful. So let's spin the camera around and we'll take a closer look. Okay, so in the background you'll see the typical Seiko packaging. I'm not going to go through that with you. I've had a few Seikos on the channel lately, and it's very similar. The watch itself here, as you can see, this thing is very beautifully done. But let's start off by going through some of the specifications and measurements of this thing. So first of all, case size, we are looking at a case width of 42 millimeters. Lug to lug is 49 millimeters. The lug width is 22 millimeters, and we have a thickness of 14.5 millimeters. So this is a fairly tall watch. The water resistance on the Seiko here is 100 meters, and the crystal is sapphire on top, and I believe it is the Hardlex mineral crystal on the bottom side of the case. So since we have the watch flipped over here, we'll take a look at the movement. This is Seiko's caliber 4R57. It's a 29 joule movement with just over a 40-hour power reserve. As you can see, it's not particularly decorated other than some brushwork, but I really love the gold Seiko rotor. It's also a hand winding and hackable movement, and so far it's been keeping really good time for me. So if we flip the watch back over, I just want to walk you guys through what we're looking at on the dial. I also want to point out a few subtle details you may not notice when watching videos like this or taking a look at pictures. We'll start off with the date subdial here at the 6 o'clock position. First of all, it has a really nice sunburst effect, and in between the inner part of the dial and the date track there is a nice little strip of polished stainless, as well as on the outer part of the subdial. Just gives it a nice little punch, I find. And then on the upper and right side of the dial, we have the power reserve indicator in that same metallic gray. I find both the power reserve indicator and the subdial just pop really nicely against that glossy black dial. Now, as far as the hands go, the power reserve hand I find is a very unique, kind of a cool design. I really like their choice for that, but the hour and minute hands I find are very well done. On one side we have a polished finished versus a brush side on the other, and it's really sharp looking, and I just love the handset that they've chosen for this watch. The case is also finished to a really high quality. There is a combination of brushing and polishing. The lines between the finishes are very sharp, and it also, although being a little on the taller side, it also curves nicely down over your wrist. Now, if we flip it over here, you'll see the crown is signed with the Seiko S, and this thing is absolute butter to wind. It's really solid when setting the time and date as well. It isn't a screw down crown, but I'm really happy with it so far. The last thing I want to talk about here is the bracelet, and the bracelet on this watch has a really cool design. It is almost completely brushed other than this beveled edge of the center links, which is polished. Plays really nicely off the light, especially the sunlight. Now, the end links are solid end links. The clasp is the typical Seiko stamped clasp for this price point. It's not the greatest, but it is comfortable on wrist. The one downfall to the clasp, though, is this gap between the bracelet and the clasp. I just find myself looking at it all the time when I'm wearing it, and it kind of irritates me a little bit. It's not a huge deal, but let me just throw it on wrist actually for a second for you guys. Alright, so I have to say I'm really digging this thing. It's too bad about the gap you can see here. I will probably end up putting this on a leather strap in the future anyway, but other than that, I can't really find much wrong with this watch. I think Seiko's really hit a home run with this watch, as well as the whole Presage line. They've got a lot of nice options and really quality watches for the price. So that's going to be it for today's video. We'll spin the camera back around and wrap this up. Alright everybody, so thanks so much for taking the time to stop by the channel today. It is always appreciated. A couple of things that are coming up. I have the review of the Glycine GMT in the works. I did an unboxing a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen that, make sure you go and check it out. Also, I have 2 micro brands inbound, one being from Scott at Watches Galore, the second being from Aron Dunlap. Both of these guys are really awesome and they have some great content, so make sure you check out their channels. I'll leave links to both in the description below, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.